Welcome you all for the panel discussion on UPSC Civil Service exam. This is to help our fellow KGPNs who are aspiring for civil services. Hope you all have an enriching experience from the session. So without any delay, let's start the session.
Today we have with us a great pair of panelists. First up, we have Harsh Parashar, who qualified the Civil Services examination with an All India rank of 233. So Harsh, would you like to give your introduction to our audience?
Sure, Priyanshu. So, my name is Harsh. I am from Katihar, Bihar, and surprisingly, AIR once Shubham Kumar is also from Katihar. I did my engineering in E and ECE, Electronics and Electrical Communication, from 2013 to 2017 at IIT Kharagpur, and I was at Azad Hall. Uh, After in 2017, I started working at Deloitte as a data scientist, and I worked there for almost 2 years. And it was there that I decided that I want to prepare for civil services. In 2018 December, I left my job and I started preparing for around 9 months. I worked, I studied only, and I was not working. In 2019 December, after failing my first prelims, I started preparing. I started a job at Zivanta again as a data scientist, where I worked for last 2 years. Right after interviews, I joined McKinsey, where I had planned I'll keep working if I did not qualify in this attempt. And that's about me.
Thank you, Harsh. Next up, we have Sandeep Kumar, who aced this exam with an All India rank of 186. So Sandeep, would you like to come forward with your introduction to our audience?
Hi all, my name is Sandeep Kumar. I am from Madhubani district of Bihar. I did my graduation from IIT Kharagpur from the Department of Mathematics. I was enrolled in Mathematics and Computing, and I graduated in 2019. And since then, I was preparing for UPSC. I gave my first attempt in 2019 itself. I reached till interview stage in my first attempt, but I could not make it in the final list. This was my second attempt in 2020, and I have secured All India rank 186. And in UPSC journey, mathematics was my optional subject. So that's all.
Thank you, Sandeep. During the seminar, the audience can put up their queries and doubts in the chat box. We would be more than happy to take up those at the end.
So now coming to our first question. What inspired you to choose the career in the civil services, despite the other opportunities a KGPN has? So Harsh, would you like to start?
Sure. When I started working at Deloitte, the first time I got my salary, I was very happy. In fact, preparing for civil services was not in my mind. It was somewhere in the back of my mind, because if you're from Bihar and you're a very good student, somebody always comes up with the idea that you should prepare for services. But I had no such intention while I was, at KGP, and even while working there for first 6 months at Deloitte, I had no idea that I'll start preparing. But I think it was a book that I read by Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon, who is an ex-foreign secretary and also ex-national security advisor, Choices. And there I felt that this particular bureaucracy and in general foreign services is quite a different kind of job. It offers something that that corporate job cannot offer you. The chance to represent your country in the international forum. And I felt that it will be a matter of great honor if I can do that. So foreign services was my first preference when I started working, when I started preparing, and that was my motivation. And overall, in last almost 2-3 years, there have been many cases where this idea got reinforced again. Even recently, you would have seen that video of Sneha Dubey when she was replying to the Prime Minister of Pakistan in United Nations General Assembly. And so I find these videos very inspiring, and that was my motivation to start preparing for civil services.
That was great. Sandeep, would you like to tell about your story?
Yeah, so preparing for civil services was not always there in my mind. In my childhood, getting into IT was the dream. Uh, but after I got into IT, we all start thinking what are career choices. And definitely in KGP, you have so many other choices. And seeing your friends and colleagues doing excellent work in their own fields also inspired you. So in my group of friends, I saw everyone was working in that field in which they were passionate about. Now, if someone is going to become a software developer, then I used to see him code during nights. He was always fond of these things, building softwares, open source projects, and everything. So from there also I drew some inspiration that I should find a career path which I'm most passionate about, which I really care about. And there was a bit of confusion as to which career choices I should make. And but then real inspiration came from Bihar. I grew up in Bihar, and like Hers mentioned, everyone expects you, if you are a good student, to become an IS or IPS. But that expectation was not the only reason. The reason was that I saw in my society the kind of things that are required. I come from a village, a very remote village in the Kosi belt. As you know, Kosi is the curse of Bihar, and so there is definite development deficit in my region. Roads are not properly built. Education facilities are not there. Electricity situation only improved very recently, like 5 6 years ago. Before that, even I have seen periods where we didn't have any electricity at all. So you grow up in such environments, then you begin to think, how can we solve these problems? And definitely lots of things can be done, but ultimately most of the things are basic requirements of people which can only be fulfilled by government. And by becoming part of the bureaucracy, part of the government service, you can contribute meaningfully towards the development of your society. And that was the real motivation for me. And Once I started seriously thinking about UPSC and preparing for civil services examination, that motivation uh, put me on a trajectory which was sort of always inspiring me and motivating me. So those factors were the real inspiration. And apart from all of these things, uh, guidance and motivation from my parents, inspiration from my father's life, my mother's life, and stories from my friends and their pursuit of excellence. All of these things also were inspiring factors behind this.
That was really great. It was an inspiring story from your end.
So now let us move on to our next question. As we all know that the first step in achieving any milestone is the most crucial as well as a challenging one. So when should one take this step? What, according to you, is the right time for one to begin his or her UPSC preparations? So Sandeep, would you like to take up this question?
Yeah, surely. So this depends on a lot of factors. First thing is that I would advise all aspirants to get into service as soon as possible. Like you want to get into the service uh, with enough age advantage, so that you can reach higher level of posts. Like if you have 38 years of service in the IAS or IPS, then you can surely reach the top level post, cabinet secretary post or CBI director or something like that. So uh, you want to join the service with age advantage. So if someone starts preparing at 26 or 27, then if they may take 2 3 attempts and they clear the exam at say 30, age 30, then they are at slightly comparative disadvantage they will face compared to those who join the service at 24 or 25 or even 22. So that is one factor. Another is that what is your own situation. For instance, if someone can afford to not have job and prepare full time for civil services right after graduation, uh, so that is also an ideal option for me. From my parents side, uh, I was free to do my full time preparation for UPSC right after graduation. I did not have to do a job because of my financial situation in my family. But not everyone has such kind of situation. So they may need to do job for a few years, then they may decide to come into civil services. So all of these factors play a role. So it depends on individual's particular situation and what kind of issues they are facing. But a few things can be that start as early as you can. You know, if as per your requirements, if you can start early, then it's better. Uh, if you can afford to start preparing for civil service examination in your college years, then also it's good. You know, because in college years, if you build up this momentum that I have to get into civil services, then you can devote time. I started preparation in KGP as KGP. So in my 5th year, I was able to devote sufficient amount of time into my preparation, which helped me get into civil services preparation with a mindset uh, that really helped me achieve the rank in my second attempt. Because in my first attempt itself, I did still interviews. You know, in 5th year, a lot of students waste time after getting placements or jobs, but you can use that time creatively and purposefully. So if you can do that, then it's well. So right time to prepare for UPSC depends on individual, but start preparation as early as you can.
That's nice. Harsh, would you like to add some points to what Sandeep said?
Yes, and Sandeep has very rightly pointed out a very crucial thing that the early you start, the higher level you'll reach. In fact, when you'll see the secretaries list, you'll see that most of them cleared when they were 22 or 23. So that's certainly an important factor. But I'll add two, key pointers here. One is people don't always know what they want to do in life. Like throughout my journey at KGP, I was not sure that I was going to do civil services. So if you realize quite later in your career that this is what you want to do, then you can switch even at a later stage. There are some people who, and I think it was Ankit Pannu, a friend of my friend, who got into services right after he graduated. The same was with, I think, Tina Dabi as well. And then there are examples of people, I think, from 2013, Gaurav Agarwal, who was, uh, he first did IIT, then he did IIM, then he went abroad and worked for a few years there, then he returned and then wrote for civil services. So there are cases for, on both sides of the spectrum. The key idea is when you think that this is the suitable job for you and that no other job is suitable, you don't want to work in the corporate sector, then this becomes the right time. Now, one more thing I'll add here is you do not always know when you are going to clear it. The first thing was you don't know when you want to start preparing. The second thing is you also don't know whether you're actually going to clear it immediately. Like I have a few friends from my batch, from 2017 batch, who started preparing. One friend wrote prelims twice. He wrote mains twice, and in the third attempt he failed in prelims stage itself. So there can be such setbacks where uh, you face a issue where after 5 years after graduating, you still have not worked one day of your life, and you might face a problem that you're not getting into services. You might end up in a good government job, but not civil services if you would want. So you'll have to balance both these factors and be sure that this is the right time to prepare and that this is what you really want to do.
Thank you, Sandeep.
So now moving to our next question. We know CGPORs, project and internships are an integral part of our KGP life. So how relevant are they for UPSC? And what impact it has in the application form? So Harsh, what are your views on this?
So in terms of, see, this is UPSC is one of the best level playing grounds, irrespective of whether you're from KGP, whether you're from any IIT, any eminent institute, or you have done 5 internships abroad, or you have got a president gold medal. It does not really matter. During the examination stage, nothing matters except what you have learned and what you can put down on the paper, and that you are able to convince the examiner that you know what you want to do, what you have studied. Now, CGPOR project internship, people think that this might come in handy during interview stage, and I think it does. In my interview, I got 201, and one factor behind this was because I had worked for almost 4 years. I think my soft skills, had polished up a bit. My resume had become more impressive, and these factors might have played in the back of their head of the interviewers, but it does not really matter. People who have gotten 215 who have never done any CG, who did not have good CGPA, did not get good POR, good projects or internships. So in UPSC, it does not really matter. Uh, it might help you during while you're working, because the focus of government is on specialization of the bureaucracy. So somebody who is a good data analyst or a good lawyer, those things might come in handy during the uh, service stage, but never during the selection procedure.
That was it. Sandeep, would you like to say something?
Yeah, as Hers rightly said, these things don't matter much, and especially if you look at prelims and mains, then they don't matter at all. But in interview, as Hers also said that these things do matter a little, and I will give you a few specific examples. Like if you have done internship at some renowned places, like say NASA or ISRO, or some other companies which are famous, then they might ask you a question from that. What did you do in ISRO? What kind of projects did you do? So a discussion will go on, and you might have and chance to present some better things about you. You know, a better side of your personality. So CG don't matter as such. I don't think CG they don't even look at CG, but POR, some projects, internships, these things do matter because they catch the attention of the interview board members, and they might pick certain questions from you. So if you can add interesting points in these things on your DAF, there is detailed application form which you fill before interview, and these things are available in front of the interview board. So they might look at it, and if they ask few questions from it, then they are asking from your strength. You know, you can speak from the side of your strength, so you can present your personality in a better way in such situations. So I would ask fellow aspirants from KGP to focus on these things as well. Don't ignore them fully, since simply because you are preparing for civil services. uh, Anyhow, these things will also add to your personality. You have so many opportunities in KGP, so try to avail all of these things along with your preparation for UPSC if you are doing that. Ultimately, your goal should be to develop a wholesome personality. I personally would say that I missed out on these opportunities in KGP because some right guidance was not available to me at the time. So I did not have that impressive resume, so to say, in front of the interview board. And I wish I had done those things while in KGP. So that chance will never come to you. You know, KGP offers a great life, and enjoy that, and build your personality in such an environment. That will be very helpful in interview stage.
That was great.
Coming on to our next question. Proper guidance and relevant knowledge are the two most important pillars to ace any examination. Would you like to share with our audience the books that you preferred and the coachings that you approached for guidance? So, Harsh, would you like to start on this?
Sure. So one is strategy and another one is resource. On resource, then you have two parts, coaching and books. Now, I was working full time while attempting my second and third attempts. In my second attempt also, so in my first two attempts, I did not clear prelims. In my third attempt, I got AIR 233, and I was not working for 6 months before first attempt, but I was working throughout my second and third attempt. So uh, now on strategy, I would say I've listed down some things for working aspirants. I think this was quite specific to my resume because I was working as well as preparing, so it was a little more difficult for me. So my strategy had to be curtailed according to how I had to handle, balance myself on both these boards. Uh, once, so do you want me to go into details in this, Priyanshu?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So one strategy I'll say is you have to mug up a lot of things, and you have to mug up so many times that you internalize these. And when you're writing or when you're speaking, you can pull those things from the back of your head while either you're not speaking in front of the panel or writing in the notebook. So you have to make notes whenever you are preparing, and you have to revise your notes again and again. And your notes have to be very concise. This one part. The second part is you have to put that note in the actual answer sheet in the best possible manner, which will be the best representation of how you have actually internalized this. So rather than putting things in point, you should rather make graphs, and these are very common things which you'll find in most of the topper stocks. A specific tip I'll give for people who want to work as well as prepare is that find a job where you can balance both. I was working at an MNC before, and I did not have enough time to read even newspaper. But later on, when I shifted to startup, I had much more time. So, and I was working from home during COVID, so I had much more flexibility in adjusting both of these. So, find a job where you can manage both of these. As to resources, I'll say I did not take any coaching. I did not attend any coaching classes, but I made liberal use of online mock tests. I used to print question papers, write them here, scan them and upload them and get them checked. I also relied a lot on the material that they prepare because they are very experienced faculty. So they distill all this information into small keywords or facts which you can use in the examination. So I made use of that. But I don't think coaching is important at all. I did not rely on coaching. I do not know any teachers who are in ORN, which is Old Rajendra Nagar and Mukherjee Nagar. So you don't need coaching, but you still can access their coaching material. Some of it is available freely on their website. Some of it you can pay some money and download these, which will become helpful. As for the book list is quite standard. You can find this in any topper's blog. Uh, but the books are really not what actually get you through, because 10 lakh aspirants will be reading the same books. They'll be accessing the same coaching material. It's how much you internalize that information, how much you can process it, retain it, and then uh, uh, put down on paper is what really matters. So resources are not really the differentiating factor.
Thank you, Harsh. Sandeep, what were your choices in this regard?
Yeah, so I also did not join any coaching institute, although I was in Delhi from 2019 to 2021. But since I cleared prelims and mains in my first attempt itself, I did not find the utility of any coaching. So you have two examples here. So this is really wonderful because these days a lot of coaching institutes are sort of projecting as if coaching is necessary for this clearing this exam. So you have
Exactly.
two examples here. Yeah. So I totally agree with hers that you don't need any coaching. Although I'm not going to trash talk on coaching centers, they do help many candidates, and a lot of toppers have come from them. So if you find the utility of coaching institutes, then you can go there. But you can self-study and clear this exam as well, as both hers and I have done. As far as the subject-wise preparation strategy is done, so if we go into details of it, then it will take a lot of time. So maybe that should be a whole talk in and of itself. But few basic things can be mentioned here that uh, book list, you should find a standard book list of any toppers and stick to that. Don't find too many resources, don't read too many books, but keep your resources limited and read them again and again. Revision is the key to success in UPSC examination, it is said by all the toppers. So that should be the real strategy. And use online materials liberally, uh, so whenever you are stuck in some of the topics, like you are reading newspaper or you are reading some books and you find some topics you are not able to understand, then use online material, even coaching material found online. So I used to use ice power websites or even Drishti websites. They provide wonderful material, short and crisp material on many topics, and you can use that in your preparation. And whatever book list you follow, try to make your own notes out of that, and then you can revise them again and again, depending upon the requirements of prelims and mains. Both the requirements are very different, so you have to keep that in mind. But basic preparation is done from the mains point of view, a mains examination that you have, and then when the prelims exam comes nearby, then you put a specific attention on prelims requirements. So that can be done. And detailed strategy regarding each subject, like uh, history or society, if we go into that, it will take a lot of time. And but we can say that a lot of toppers have written regarding each topics that can be found online. And if any need arises, then you guys can contact me again.
Thank you. These were some great.
So now moving to our next question. So one of the common doubts which every aspirant has is besides the academic workload, what kind of non-academic routine should one follow in order to maximize the effort and time for the UPSC preparation? Sandeep, can you please tell about your routine?
Yeah. So as it can be obvious that you have to be in a very rigorous academic routine during UPSC preparation. From my side, I can say that I used to study on average 10 hours each day in my second attempt. In my first attempt, it was a little less because in KGB I had to do classes and all things as well. But in my second attempt, it was more than 10 hours almost each day. So that takes a heavy toll. So some non-academic routine might refresh you and help you keep be in that routine. So from my side, it was mostly listening to music that I like, whether it is classical music or rock music. I used to listen to them, especially while solving math questions. I used to listen to music, uh, and meditation was another thing that I used to do. 3 4 times a week I used to meditate for half an hour, and that really helped me a lot. And then one other thing is that during UPSC preparation, try to be in a group of friends who are also preparing for UPSC. If you have a 3 or 4 group of friends who are all serious aspirants, I'm not talking of casual aspirants who are wasting their time, serious aspirants who are devoting their time. If you can be in a group of such people, then you can all motivate each other. You can be a source of support to each other, emotional support to each other. So I used to talk to my friends whenever I was feeling low or whenever I had doubts, uh, and those things will definitely come in UPSC preparation to all the aspirants. Everyone goes through such phases. You will feel demotivated. You will have a lot of doubts. So your friends will come at those points and support you. So in the non-academic routine, I would say that do such activities which always cheers you up, refreshes you, and puts you on a positive trajectory. But don't do anything that is distracting. So if you are not motivated, if you are feeling like you don't want to study, and suddenly you start watching a TV series, then that is not the right thing to do, because that will lead you to a very wrong path. So non-academic routine should also be such that it helps you in your academic routine. So that is what I want to emphasize here, because this is that kind of rigorous study that is required. So that's from my side.
Yeah, Harsh, could you please tell about your routine?
Yes. So, Sandeep very, rightly pointed out how rigorous your academic routine is going to be. For me, it was like even more hectic. It was killing me all the time because usually I would have calls, then I would try to study, and then there would be distractions. Somebody would ping up, and something would always be happening. Sometimes during excessive workload, when there will be a project deliverable, during that time, it will be very difficult to, even follow academic routine, let alone have any time for non-academic routine. But it's very important to have your way of uh, chilling out. uh, I like running, so I used to go running a lot. I had fixed 20 minutes of running, 3 kilometers, and 5 minutes for uh, taking a bath afterwards. So half an hour you devote to yourself. I used to go running in evening, even though I would prefer running in the morning, because morning I used to find I was able to focus the best. So my daily routine would be something like getting up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, then studying for 4 hours till 10 a.m. If there will be office, which luckily I did not have to go a lot to, so I would get ready quickly and then leave and come back at around say 5 6. Or if I can come early, then even better. Or if I would have to stay later, then bad luck. I would come back at home, make something for myself, go running, then eat, come back, eat, freshen up, and then try to find 1 or 2 hours to study back before I, go to sleep. So I also, and during COVID, the motivation on my side was even lower. I made a, so, there are phases during your preparation where For Sandeep, I think he was very lucky that he made it in the first attempt to interview stage. When I did not clear prelims for the first 2 times, I felt that was it for me. And if I would not have cleared this time, I would probably have continued working at McKinsey in data science. So to keep yourself motivated is a very difficult thing, and for me it was very, very difficult. I read a lot of Hindi poetry as well, especially Ramdhari Singh Dinkarji, and that actually also helped me during interview stage, where in my extracurricular activities I wrote both running, taking part in marathons, and reading Hindi poetry. So although no questions were asked on this, but in during mock interviews I felt this was a very important area for discussion from the panel members. So your non-academic routine, here I would like to differ a little. I feel that your non-academic routine should be completely non-academic. I felt that when I'm not studying, I should not be studying. It should be a break completely from studying, even if that's not beneficial for me. Although this might not always be helpful. So I wasted a lot of time during COVID. Even when I could have studied and I had the best opportunity and I had lesser time, I was in such a bad mindset that I was not studying for like 5 6 months when there was no certainty on when the interviews are going to happen. So I think that also reflected a little on my rank, because I felt I could have done a little better if I had worked uh, thoroughly during that preparation, around 5 to 6 months. Many people worked in that study during that period and they benefited from it. I, on the other hand, I was so demotivated that I was binge watching TV series, and that actually ended up harming me a lot. So your non-academic routine should be something that refreshes you, and unlike my case where I ended up wasting a lot of time, you should try to channel your energy in the positive direction.
That was really great from your side.
Moving on, in such a tough exam like civil services, whose duration in itself is about an year, which tests not only our knowledge but our perseverance. What are some things that we should keep in mind during the various stages of the examination so that we can focus well and come out on top? So, Harsh, would you like to go forward with the question?
Yes. So, so these 3 stages, they test you for different kind of things. In prelims, you're tested on your memory, and I feel it's mostly your memory. Many people will say differently, but I feel prelims is so unpredictable. They ask you very random questions, and if you have good base of knowledge, then you'll be able to clear prelims. And but that's different from mains and interview. For prelims, you need to have expansive knowledge. Even if you should be like jack of all trades. You need to know a lot of things, and that's what I felt after failing prelims twice. My knowledge base was not sufficiently large. Even if I, for example, I'll give an example. Uh, if I know about Buddhism, if I know about that there are 2 schools of Buddhism, or 3 schools, then I do not know the sub schools within them, and that I needed to know during prelim stage. Now in mains, it's very different. In mains, you don't need to know the specifics. The examiner does not know what you don't know, uh, and it's subjective. So you can get away with only writing the things you know. In prelims, you cannot get away. If you don't know, you don't know. In mains, you need to focus more on the content as well as presentation. In prelims, it's only about content. There is no presentation involved, since it's 100 marks objective question. In interview stage, it's even different. In interview, you don't only need the ability to write well but also speak well. People, and I felt this during, I gave around 10 12 mock interviews, and in the initial interviews I felt that whatever information I'm writing in mains, that's not the same as presenting during the interview. In mains, you need to have knowledge, uh, but in interview it's only about presentation. So you move from how large your content base is to how well you are presenting from across the prelims, mains, and then in the interview stage.
Thank you, Harsh. Sandeep, would you like to add something to what Harsh said?
Yeah, so uh, Hers rightly mentioned the whole overall approach of prelims, mains, and interview stages. I would mention few specific things where a lot of candidates make mistake. About prelims, I would say that revision is the key. So many things and so many facts are to be memorized. So unless you iterate those things 3-4 times, you will not be able to recall those things under exam conditions, because there is too much pressure there. You have to solve 100 questions in 2 hours. So your muscle memory should be strong enough to allow you to recall all those things. So revision is the key. A lot of students read a lot, but they don't revise during those 3-4 months before prelims, and they end up not utilizing those material that they have read. So revision is the key. Second is test series. Test series at all these stages: prelims, mains, and interview. In interview, we call them mock interview, but you can consider them test series. That is very important, because with test series you come to know your level of preparation, and you can refine that. You can objectively gauge your preparation. So for prelims, you have to write say 40-50 tests, but if you hear candidates, many of them say they only wrote 10 tests or 15 tests. They only wrote 5 or 6 full length tests, and that is where they are making mistakes. So test series should be taken very seriously by all the aspirants: prelims, mains, and interview, all these stages. So these two things. And uh, third would be that during mains, answer writing practice along with test series. So on answer writing practice, uh, you have to develop that presentation skills. uh, you have knowledge base, surely. If you have clear prelims and studied for mains, then you do have content base. But one important thing is that how do you present that knowledge? That is very important, because again the challenge here is that whatever you know, you have to present that in very limited amount of time, say 7-8 minutes for 10 marker and 10-11 minutes for 15 marker. So you don't have a lot of time. So your presentation skills will really impress the examiner ultimately. So if you see Subham Kumar's copies, then how many charts, how many diagrams he uses, that's how he got more marks. So those things can be those things should aspirants focus on. And there's other things as well, but I will keep myself at this. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandeep. Moving on to our next question. One of the most common dilemmas that KGPNs face while preparing for UPSC is the placement period. So is it preferred to skip the placements for full-fledged UPSC preparations, or is it too high of a risk worth taking? Would you like to shed some light on this, Harsh?
It's very interesting that you have got Sandeep and me. Both of us have taken different routes to reaching the same place. So I sat for placements, I sat for interviews and everything. And so the way I would personally prefer to, not skip the placements, but there are many people who have skipped placements and they have done wonderfully. So, it completely depends upon the person. I think in the very first few questions, Sandeep mentioned if your financial condition permits and you're sure that this is what you want to do, then it's okay to skip the placements and get into, get head on into preparation from the very beginning. But if you are like me, if you're not sure that this is you want to do, and if you want to have a backup plan, even if you're financially well, and you think that what if I do not clear, maybe after 6 years of preparation, will I still be there? In fact, a very interesting uh, thing I would like to share. So while working at Zivanta, we were hiring a few people, and I came across a guy from IIT Delhi. He had filled the application to get the job, and he was a very good scholar. He had KVPY to his name. He was NTSE to his name. Then he went to IIT Delhi and did chemical engineering, and then he prepared for 3 years right after college, and then he left the preparation and was looking for a job. So, you have both good sides and bad sides for to this. If you skip the placements, uh, and it would completely depend upon your own instincts, whether you really feel that this is what you want to do.
Thank you, Harsh. Sandeep, what are your views on the topic?
Yeah, so I did not sit for placements because I was quite clear in my mind that UPSC is what I want to do. And fortunately enough, my father supported me wholeheartedly. He said that you can afford to not have the job. I will fund your education after college. So that was not a problem for me. And so that sort of was the situation I was facing. And I decided in that situation that uh, if I continue with the rigorous preparation in my fifth year, then in my first attempt itself, I might clear the exam. And uh, finally, I did not clear it, but still, I reached till interview stage, and that gave me a lot of experience at all these stages, which I used in my second attempt. So I think, with the benefit of hindsight, I did not make a mistake. But here, I would also be now, I would be cautious, because the thing is that UPSC is a very uncertain exam. You are never sure that you will find yourself in the league. You know, uh, sometimes you may be expecting a good rank, but you will not get a good rank, and you are dissatisfied. Uh, so I would say that having a solid backup plan is the right approach. Otherwise, what happens is that a lot of IT graduates who fail in UPSC end up joining coaching institutes, whether for IT JEE or for UPSC preparation. So that is ultimately, that is not a bad job, salary wise or other things, but I think more solid backup plan can be had, especially for IT graduates. So I would advise aspirants to go for placements and do job like Hers did, and then you start preparing for civil services, because that will also reflect uh, in a good way in your interview stage. Because it's just my hunch, but I think they appreciate those candidates who are earning and who are not dependent on their parents' income. Because one of my friends, Saurabh, he's also from KGP MNC 2019, and he's also preparing. So in his interview, actually, the chairman was impressed that he's earning somehow, uh, and he's preparing along with the job. So it's just a hunch. I'm not sure whether this is the thing, and it depends on each interview panel. But with the benefit of hindsight, even though I did not make a mistake, if I had to do it all over again, I would have gotten a job and then prepare for civil services.
Thank you, Sandeep.
So now moving on, we all know that UPSC is not a cakewalk, rather needs some serious hard work. So how important is the backup option considering the success rate of UPSC? Could you please suggest some possible backup plans for our Janta? Sandeep, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so earlier also we addressed this, that in placements you can sit, and in KGP placement records are excellent, so you will definitely get a job. And if you have job experience, that then even if you fail in UPSC, then you can go back to that job or in similar fields. So that is one option. Another is that uh, possible backup options, right? So another is that by default many people go to coaching industries, so that can be another backup option. And so also UPSC, after UPSC preparation, you will develop certain qualities which might help you in other sectors like NGO. You might find yourself interested in NGO sector, and there also you have opportunities. uh, and a lot of agencies, central agency, government agencies are also hiring those who reach till interview stages but don't clear the UPSC examinations. So there also you have certain options. These days, last year I remember those who reached till interview stages, a lot of vacancies were opened for them from this financial center in Gift City, Gujarat, and they applied for that. This year also, Post Authority of India opened up vacancies for those who is still interview stage. So there are certainly some backup options. So it's not like you are lost somewhere in the dark. Uh, but you should have a solid plan about this. To all the aspirants, I would advise that think of a situation where you don't clear UPSC for 2-3 attempts. Then what you will do? So you should have some idea of what you will do if you don't clear 2-3 in after 2-3 attempts. Uh, yeah.
That was great. So Harsh, what are your suggestions?
Yeah, so I think Sandeep has covered most of the things. Now, a few more things I can think of is, say, if you do not clear civil services, UPSC specific civil services. So there are many other states PCS exams as well. And the knowledge that you will have from UPSC will mostly be sufficient to clear them. In fact, I also wrote BPSC 65th BPSC, and I ranked AIR 19. But I did not prepare a single day specifically for BPSC. And even though I skipped on all the questions that were specific to Bihar, having knowledge about other things which have an overlap between UPSC and BPSC were sufficient to get me through. Uh, uh, and most of the states have their specific PCS exams, so you can go for them if you have prepared well for UPSC and you have not cleared here. You will most likely clear there. There are other government job options as well if government job is exactly what you want, like EPFO and RBI, and some of these exams are usually what aspirants give uh, when they do not make it through in the first 2 or 3 attempts. Then there is another option that was in the back of my head, which I would personally have preferred. I did not want to work in a state PCS because I felt foreign services is what I want to do. And if I don't get foreign services, then either I'll continue in the private sector in India, or I'll take a drop and I'll go study abroad, and then look for more better job opportunities. In fact, the company I was working for, Zevanta, my boss had cleared civil services back in 1996, and he did not get a good enough rank. He got into allied services, which is anything except IAS, IPS, IFS. And he got into one of those services. He chose not to take it, and then he went to do a MBA in USA, and then he's now the vice chairperson in VP in Bank of America. And now he has a startup where he's employing around 20-30 people. So not clearing UPSC does not mean the end of life. You'll have huge number of backup options, and especially for people who are from IIT, you'll have like a plethora of hundreds of options available before you. Now I would also want to add a point of caution here, which I think I did not before. Once you get into working, the mode of working, where getting a salary crediting into your into your bank account at the end of month, it's very difficult to leave that. In fact, during the 9 months when I was not preparing that, every first of the month, I'll feel that little pang of not getting a message that this much money has been credited into your account. So that becomes a very difficult job problem if you start working, you get into placements, and then you start preparing and you decide to leave the job. Uh, if you do other, I mean, if you try to walk on both the boats like I've been doing for 2 years, then it's even more difficult, because I had a backup. I can go back to working anytime. I do not have a gap in my CV because I've been working continuously. But then I also did not have enough time, and there's a lot of demotivation. So sometimes वो धोबी के कुत्ते वाली बात हो जाती है, ना घर का ना घाट का. Now, neither are you studying properly, like I was not studying properly during COVID, and neither you are working properly because you're not focusing really focusing on improving your other set of skills. You're not focusing on the latest advances in data science. So these are some of the drawbacks of working and leaving or continuing to work. So backups are good. I think Sandeep's path was even that must have been very challenging, but then you have the opportunity to get into the services earlier, which is hugely beneficial during the later considerations of career progression.
Yeah,
One second. Yeah, so on the last point that Harsh mentioned, not having job was also a source of motivation for me. That I have to get this job
Definitely.
somehow. I have to clear this civil services examinations to get a job, to become employed. So you can use that in a positive manner as well. I use that definitely because in my second attempt, I gave everything that I had. Whatever I could do, I had to become employed in my second attempt. Although it is, you can never be 100% sure, but you give your best effort in such situations. So there is this side that aspirants can take note of.
these are really inspiring stories from
So moving on, we know that Nagar and Old Rajendra Nagar are called the Makkah and Medina of UPSC preparation in India. So according to you, is it a must to move to Delhi if a person wants to give a serious try at the civil services examination? So Harsh, would you like to take up this question?
I do not think it's important. I am staying in Gurgaon and it's very close to Delhi NCR. So if I would have to, travel to Old Rajendra Nagar, it would have been easy for me. But I actually would not have gone more than 2 to 3 times in last 2 3 years, and that was mostly for saving money on printing. Printing costed me 7 rupees per paper because I was using HP printer, and there they would print only for a rupee or so. So if I would have a lot of material to print, I would just go there. That's the only way I used the Delhi, so-called Delhi coaching industry and ORN area. It's completely not necessary to relocate. During mock interviews earlier, it would still have been very important to go and attend those mock interviews in person. But now most of these mock interviews were done in online mode as well. Now, I would say it's little bit important to, have the feeling of physical interviews rather than mock interviews. But otherwise, for prelims and main stage, it's not necessary to go to Delhi. Everything that you would need, all of it is available online. You would only need to invest some money in buying a printer, so that it's easier to write on in actual answer sheets, rather than for prelims test you're writing marking those on the computer. So I think moving to Delhi is really not a necessity, a prerequisite.
Thank you, Harsh. Sandeep, would you like to add some points to what Harsh said?
Yeah, like her said, buy a nice printer and you are set for UPSC preparation. So that is the thing. But on a slightly different note, I would say that for those aspirants who are alone in KGP and preparing for civil services, first thing I would say that in KGP also a lot of aspirants are preparing. So make a groups among these aspirants. Somehow, I hope there are platforms which enable people to come together and discuss UPSC related things. Unfortunately, in my case, I did not know a lot of aspirants who were preparing for civil services. And one of my friend was preparing, but he chose to be at home in Jharkhand, so he could not be in Delhi. So I felt that being in a group of friends who are also preparing, that will help me be on the right track and learn from each other. So for that group of friends, I came to Delhi, and unfortunately for me, I found such a group. I went to IS Baba for mains test series, and I wrote at their center, and there I found 2 3 people, and one of them was Gayatri. She is also from KGP. Uh, she graduated in 2014 itself, I think. And four of us used to write answers together and discuss among ourselves, and that benefited all of us. Gayatri cleared in 2019 itself. She got IRS in that year. This year I cleared from that group. So and other candidates also reached till interview stage. So you see that the group dynamic is very important for UPSC preparation. So Delhi is helpful in that. There are so many coaching centers. When you go to write at their centers, you can meet other aspirants, and you can learn from them. But you have to be cautious in all of this. So at least in this thing, Delhi will help you, because preparing on your own, I think you can make some mistakes which you otherwise would not make, because your friends will highlight those mistakes. So there is that side of Delhi. But ultimately, everyone has to decide on their own situation. If someone is working like us did, then they may not have that choice. Uh, but still, they have cleared the examination. So it's not like it's mandatory to come to Delhi, but there are certain advantages, surely.
Thank you, Sandeep. That pretty much covered the whole spectrum of the question.
So now the next question is, what strategy should be used to choose the optional subject? As parents often get confused about what to prioritize, marks or interest. So what were your strategies and which parameters you thought for choosing the options? Sandeep, would you like to start?
Yeah, so here for IIT graduates, there are two things. First is whether you are interested in science optional or non-science optional. If it's science optional, then it's straightforward. Pick the subject you are most interested in. I'm from mathematics and computing background, so mathematics was the choice for me. I was interested in mathematics, so I took that optional, and I did not have to think a lot about optional subject. But I know that a lot of aspirants are struggling with optional subject. They don't have that clarity. And especially if you are picking non-science optional, then there are so many options and you get confused. uh, so personally, I'm not the right person because I did not have to face that side. But few things I can mention here is that uh, the first thing about option subject is your interest. You should be very interested in that subject, because you have to study that subject continuously for 2 3 years. If you clear in your first attempt, then also you are dealing with that subject for 1 2 years at least. And not all candidates clear in their first attempt. So you are going to study that subject matter for 3 4 years, or even 5 years for that matter. So having a strong interest in that subject matters a lot. After that, how to find that interest? You can read some basic books. You can also read 11 12 NCERTs and pick out the subjects which interest you more, whether it is political science or sociology. Such things will become clear to you, or even history. So NCERT books of 11th and 12th class will help you. Then along with that, you can read some basic introductory books on those topics. And then you can decide whether you are interested in that optional or not. So it's a bit of a struggle for those who are choosing these non-science optional. But you should spend good enough time and pick the optional subject very wisely, because ultimately that is going to decide your rank in UPSC examination. In this year, my rank was uh, almost totally decided by my score in mathematics. I got a good score in mathematics, and that set me up. Otherwise, I would have not even figured in the list. So that is the importance of optional subject. Maybe Hers can elaborate on that.
Yes, Harsh,
Yeah.
thoughts?
So, again, I would say you have got a very interesting mix of panel. I actually went through that process which Sandeep mentioned. I had to figure out that right optional. And so what happened was, when I first thought of preparing, I had philosophy in my mind because I wanted to read philosophy. And since I'm from electronics, and electronics is not listed among one of the optional, so electronics was always out of the question. And electrical comes close, but it's not exactly close. And I really did very bad in the first year electric whatever course that was. So I did very bad there. So I knew that's not I'm gonna take. Uh, the first thing I came to my mind was philosophy, because I thought I would like reading philosophy. But when I bought the book, there were two books suggested. I bought the one book and I thought, okay, maybe this is not what I would want to study. Then I thought of mathematics, because especially in that year, mathematics did very good. I think there was one Anubhav or Anuranjan or somebody in rank 8 who got 380 marks in maths, and that has been like the highest among most of the optionals. That's probably the highest marks ever one has got into optional. And I thought, okay, then mathematics it is. And because I was good in mathematics, I got very good marks in mathematics and JEE Mains as well as JEE Advanced. I got, I think, 100 full marks, around 120 marks in JEE Mains in mathematics. So I thought, then maths it is. And I started preparing for maths when I left uh, my job at Deloitte. So from August 2018 uh, uh, till almost November 2019. For almost 1 year and few months, I was rigorously studying mathematics. I had bought IMS material, which is like the standard material for mathematics, and I studied it very thoroughly. I had made notes. I had studied previous year question papers. But when I got back in the job, uh, and was not able to study mathematics for 2 months, I tried to solve a question, and I knew that was some of the among the questions that I had solved before, but I was not able to, because maths needs constant practice. So I had to give up on maths, and almost 1 year and few months of my worth of effort went into complete waste. I had to look for another optional where I had to study less and would still be able to score good marks. And that year, I think so sociology was rank 2 in Anu Kumari's case. So I thought maybe between anthropology and sociology. So I went through that process, like Sandeep mentioned. I For 11th class, I took the book Introduction to Sociology and then something else for anthropology, and I read through these, and I found sociology to be more interesting. And I thought, and there I would have to study these eminent thinkers like Karl Marx and so on. And so I went through the blogs of few people who had used these optionals and the reasons that they mentioned. So one reason why I went ahead with sociology was it has very good quality material already available in the market. So if I would have chosen an obscure optional, something like say agricultural engineering, so I would not have enough material on that. For sociology, there is adequate material. Second was how scoring it has been in the recent years, and you have to be pragmatic here. If this optional is not performing very well, like uh, I think many people used to take geography before, but very few of them are taking it more anymore because it's not performing that well. So I had to keep that thing in my mind that if toppers can score good marks in these, then maybe I'll be able to score good marks as well. So sociology again has been producing one or two people in top 5 ranks for past few years continuously. And a third factor I had to consider was how much time it would take because I was working. So I had to take something that would not take up a lot of my time. And so it was an interview of one of the toppers, I think Vishal Shah, who mentioned he only took around 3 or 4 months to complete the syllabus. And while for maths, it had taken me almost a year to read it end to end. But in sociology, it was much better. So these factors I kept in mind while choosing sociology. Now, in terms of how beneficial it has been, I think I did very good in all the subjects. My interview, essay, and mains marks were quite good this year, but it was sociology that pulled me back a little. Even though I felt my level of preparation was good and the kind of comments I was getting in the test series were also very good, but I was not able to score to the level I thought it would be. And in fact, if I would have gotten better marks in this to the range of 300, so 300 plus in optionals is considered a good marks, or like 280, 290, 230, 300 is also considered very good. So if I would have gotten in that range, I would have done much better in the ranking list. So these are few of the things that you have to keep in mind while you're choosing the optional. Uh, I'll also say that science options do not have a very good overlap, but sociology had an excellent overlap. I quoted the ideas of these thinkers both in the essay where it came out pretty good, and I also used some of these ideas in the interview stage when they were being asked specific to Bihar or maybe about India in general. So these non-science optionals have a way of enlarging your view, and ultimately you're going to serve the society. So social sciences is definitely you should have a little hands-on. These are some of the things that I think should be in your mind when you're choosing the option.
That's great.
So moving on, we all know mistakes are painful when they happen, but a person with past mistakes is a person with experience. So I think our audience will be greatly benefited if both of you could share some mistakes or experiences you committed or observed from the aspirants around you. So Sandeep, would you like to start with this question?
Yeah, so in UPSC, you should never be afraid of making mistakes because you learn from mistakes. And in my 3 years of journey in UPSC, I learned a lot from my mistakes. So first mistake I made was in my first attempt. The main reason I did not find myself in the final list was my low score in optional. And reason for that is that I did not complete my mathematics optional. I had only completed around 40 to 50% of the syllabus thoroughly, and I did not practice a lot. In one of the previous questions, I mentioned that test series is very important, and in my first attempt, I simply did not have the time to write many tests because I had not completed the syllabus. In my second attempt, I rectified that. I worked on my optional and I scored very good marks in this year's CSE, and I got a good rank, uh, decent enough rank. So one thing here is that your optional, you cannot ignore it. You have to maximize your score here, and that will carry you through even if your score in interview fluctuates a little, because interview is again a bit more uncertain compared to mains. So your mains marks are going to lay the foundation for your rank. Your interview will only improve your services and cadre, but whether you find yourself in the list or not, that will be decided by mains. And there, your optional is very important. Second mistake I made uh, was that in my second attempt, I had very little time for prelims. Only about 2 months after interview, because I had to write prelims again after interview, and after prelims in 2019, I had not devoted a single minute to prelims preparation. So in those 2 months, I found that I had to do a lot of study, and I found a lot of pressure. I thought it was very burdensome to complete all of the syllabus in 2 months, because I had not studied for prelims for so many months now. So that is somewhere something that I would advise aspirants to work on, that you don't lose touch of the subjects uh, during interview, or after mains basically, or during interview also. uh, Devote your time to interview, but somewhere in the back of your mind, keep the idea of appearing for the next attempt, so that you are mentally prepared to appear in the next attempt. uh, that would sort of keep you motivated in your study. uh, those things. And also, some aspirants make common mistakes of not practicing enough during answer writing practice. In mains, I had earlier also mentioned that you have to practice very rigorously, fulfilling the requirements of UPSC GS1 and 1 to 4. Their answer writing is very important, and if you don't write fast enough, if you don't have good presentation skills, then your marks will not improve. Uh, so those mistakes one can avoid. Also, in interview stage, you cannot take things casually. You have to again rigorously practice uh, each part of your DAF, your current affairs. Then you have to give a lot of mocks, and there, if you are not fully prepared, then your scores might not reflect well. So those mistakes can be avoided.
That was some great insights. Harsh, would you like to follow it up with your own experiences from the phase?
Sure. So I'll talk both about the mistakes that I committed and the good things which I did. So on mistakes, I think I've committed every mistake. One is losing motivation in between, which was during the COVID time. And for those 5, 6 months, I only read newspaper. I did not even revise my own notes. So it was only, God's good grace that I passed through prelims. Otherwise, it would have been another year. So don't lose your motivation. That's very important. It was only during last 50 days when I felt that that year and NEET exam and JEE exam were actually carried through. It was only after that I seriously started preparing for prelims. So do not lose touch, which is one mistake I committed, and what Sandeep mentioned. The second was for preparing for prelims while you're also giving the interview. Now, this is another mistake that I've already committed this year. During the interview, my interview was on 20th of October, 20th of August, and the prelims for this year, 2021, would have happened on 4th of October. So I had a good 40 days to prepare, and if I would have invested that time, even after interview, if I would have used that time, I would have been able to write prelims this year. Now, there also I felt like I'm too burnt out. I'm not going to prepare this year. So, this sort of lethargy that comes in after you have been studying for so long and trying to balance both the boards, that becomes a difficulty. And so that's why I did not prepare for this year prelims. And then I would have to, spend one more year until the next stage comes in, until the next year forms are filled. So this is another mistake which Sandeep had pointed out, and I've already committed. Then there is third mistake of focusing your energy on the right resources. Uh, in my first two attempts, I read a lot of books. For history alone, I read around 3 books. So that was a mistake that you should never commit. And in my last attempt, what I focused was one book from each subject is enough. I'm not gonna touch another book, even if I've already studied it before. That to save my time. So that's another thing, to keep your resources limited is a mistake which to not keep your resources limited was a mistake that I've committed. So, I did a lot of hit and trials, and many of the hits have been wrong. Some of the trials have also been good. Uh, like one thing I think I did perfect was making this switch of optional. It would have wasted almost 1 year and few months of my effort, and I still did that because I felt it would help me in maximizing my score, uh, because maths was really not doing well for me. And in fact, this I think from Anudeep Duri Shetty's blog, where he mentioned he was taking public administration for first 4 of his attempts, and then in his fifth attempt he went to anthropology and did very well. He got AIR1 that year. So that becomes a factor, that choice is very difficult, but sometimes you have to make that difficult choice, and I think I did well there. uh, the second thing I did well was attempting all my questions. In this attempt, I did not leave a single question. Writing for 3 hours, 20 questions, and those 20 questions for 10 marker or 15 marker, completing the paper itself becomes a challenge. But I had in my mind that I'm going to attempt all the questions, and I'm going to attempt them such that the examiner would not know which question I attempted first and which question I attempted last. So he would have absolutely no. I would write the answer so well with introduction, body, and conclusion, without just scribbling a few words for an answer, so that I could get good marks. And I think that's what reflects on my mains, the GS 1, 2, 3, 4 marks. So this is another thing that I did right. And third thing I think I did right was making notes, because when you're working, especially when you're working, nobody comes in the with the mindset that you're going to write this for 5, 6 attempts. Everybody thinks, okay, I'm going to give my best in 1 year, and then that's it. I'm through. But what you discount is that so many other people are also thinking the same, and some of these people are already in their third attempts. So you have to keep this in mind that you might need these notes 2 or 3 years later down the line. So I had all my notes online. So whatever I studied even in the first year, I was able to build on top of that knowledge in my subsequent attempts. If you're not maintaining online notes, or even if you're maintaining offline notes and not arranging them properly, if you're not well organized with your notes, that might become a problem. So I think I did well in having all my notes very well organized, so that every time I'm reading something about, say, the telecom industry of India, and there are certain problems there. Now, I'll not be making those notes afresh, uh, but rather adding on the notes that I have maybe from previous year or from previous month or even for 2 or 3 years back. These are some of the things that I did wrong, and then some of the things I did right. One important thing I think which helped me really crack the prelims, because I failed prelims twice, and the clearing prelims this year was like there was a big mental barrier which I had to overcome to clear prelims this year. And this year the marks, the cutoff was 92, and I was able to get 100. And even then, and I got this 100 score even when I got marked 4 of my answers wrong. So I potentially actually lost 5 marks there. The questions which I knew, but in the OMR sheet, I filled them wrong. So, that barrier was a very difficult barrier for me to overcome. And something that helped me through was watching the analysis videos. Vision IS conducts these sessions every year where they analyze 3 or 5 years of past paper, and they try to derive insights on how you should study, what you should study. So when I failed my prelims for the second time, this is what these videos are what I watched to really think how to do well in prelims. So you should always watch these analysis videos because they really help you organize your studies better.
Thank you, Harsh. These were some great insights.
So now, moving to the next question. Civil service is considered to be best services in our country. So how is civil service as a career, and how different it is from corporate sector? Sandeep, would you like to go first? No. Sandeep, you are muted.
Sorry. Yeah. So I can answer the first part of the question. As to the second part, I think Hers is the right person to answer the question. I don't have any corporate experience. But how is civil service as a career? I think in India, civil services offers one of the best jobs. Think of this scenario that at a young age of 22, 24, you are offered a post of IAS or IPS or IRS, and you are a person with so much responsibility where you can impact the lives of so many people and have a feeling of contributing to your nation. That opportunity is not available everywhere, but civil services offers you such a platform, especially if you consider IAS. Then it provides such a diverse range of opportunities that you can make an impact in almost every walks of people's lives, whether it is healthcare or education, whether it is infrastructure, implementing the schemes. So that sense of fulfillment of contributing to our nation and its growth can be achieved in civil services. So I think it, as a career choices, it certainly gives one of the best jobs available in the country to young man or women. And as far as the comparison with the corporate career is concerned, I think Hers can elaborate.
Yeah, I think Sandeep has, very rightly pointed out, this is an unparalleled job. Uh, I do not have any experience in the civil services as of now. I've only been selected, and I have not even gone to the trainings which are scheduled in December. But from what I have seen and what I have read and what I have understood, I think that civil services is an unparalleled career option. This is because Sandeep spoke about IS and how you get an opportunity to contribute to the life of people around you. But my personal preference is in foreign services, and I feel that the diversity is also, a huge factor there. You are meeting and doing something better for your country, that pride you'll carry always on the top of your chest. Uh, and in fact, it's a job that allows you to have a wider perspective of everything around you. uh, the book I mentioned, what's particularly struck me about Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon was how insightful he was about everything that is happening in the world, uh, be it from artificial intelligence to 5G to terrorism in Syria to the condition of women. And this is something that you can only gain when you are working on the grassroots level with people, watching it every day. So that civil services offer and corporate sector cannot, because when you're working in a cubicle with just your laptop and all you see is the numbers that are coming in front of you, you really cannot make sense. You cannot really connect to those numbers. Now, these are some of the excellent sides to civil services. I'll also put a few sides which I think where corporate sector ranks a little better. So one thing that corporate sector, I was working in the consulting sector for almost past 4 years now. And consulting also offers you a lot of diversity in how you actually work. I worked in telecommunications, TMT network sector. I worked in oil and natural gas, or what's rather called uh, uh, the GEM sector, the energy and mineral sector. Then I worked in healthcare, I worked in retail, and all of these are as diverse, but you are also always working in a very narrow area within there. So even when I'm working across these sectors, I'm always working as a data scientist. Whereas when you're working as a civil service, as a civil servant, you're taking different jobs in each of these areas. A second factor where corporate sector uh, ranks somewhat better is the quality of life. You'll probably be working in a big city when you're working in corporates, Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, Gurgaon. So that kind of lifestyle, civil services obviously cannot offer you. But the pride that you will have uh, for working for your society, that I think would make up for more. Uh, match up for all of those things. A third thing where I think corporate sector offers you more is salary. Even when I'll make this switch, my salary will get one third. I'll be only getting 33% when I'll start working here. And so imagine how difficult it will be for somebody who has who has done IT, then IIM, then went abroad, and then was earning in dollars, and then comes back, and then is working as a civil servant. So that kind of, the money and the perks that comes with that particular job in corporate sector somewhat ranks better. But then there is a lot of prestige that is attached to civil services. That again is more than adequate, and the diversity there. Another side factor, which, and this I've felt only recently. Uh, so after clearing civil services, I was invited to the Sthapna Divas in Katihar, and I was, getting an award for clearing examination. And there I realized the condition uh, of the people who are working there. There were queues of people. Even when I went to get my medical done at uh, in Safdarjung Hospital in Delhi, the lines of people who are working, who are waiting there to just get checked. That uh, so those people are facing a lot of difficulties in their life, and they will be looking up to you to solve their problems. So there is a sense of responsibility with which you will be working. In corporate sector, nobody really cares. Even if the project goes haywire, there will always be somebody to take care of you. But in this scenario, there you'll have very little amount of oversee that you will see, and you will be mostly having a very responsible sort of job, which in corporate sector it's mostly a leisure. The way you have been working so far in colleges, taking an easy breezy lifestyle, I think that's what continues in the corporate sector, even though the work hours are greatly enhanced. In civil services, it's a matter of life and death for many people. So, so these are some of the things that I've seen so far, and I'm sure a lot of insights will come as I and Sandeep will join our services and see how impactful really the job is.
That was really an insightful answer. So now we will move to our next question of our seminar. In this section, we will take the questions that we have taken from a form that we have circulated in the audience and among the KGP. So the first question is, how did you manage to devote time to a UPSC preparations along with your engineering subjects? So Sandeep, would you like to shed some light on this?
Yeah, so I think in 2017 I started thinking of UPSC preparation and I picked up NCERT books. And in fourth year, mathematics and computing syllabus is really huge. Like I had to attend 6 classes, and then there were labs as well. So the main thing was that I used to devote whatever time I could, like at least 5-6 hours daily, or 7-8 hours on weekends. And what I did was that I stopped going to a lot of parties, birthday parties and what other things goes on. And then I started confining myself to my room mostly with my books, and sometimes going to library. Sort of a very strict routine that I maintained. Whenever I had to go classes, if I could skip the classes, I would have skipped them. And even in classes, I used to go with my books. Sometimes it happens that professor was annoyed why I was reading NCERT in his class, and I remember one professor taking my photo and sort of reprimanding me, and I started talking of right to privacy and all of those things. So such things used to happen. But the thing is that you have to utilize your time very wisely. In KGP, if you are preparing for civil services, then be careful of how you spend your time. Don't waste it. Definitely, it's not like you should stop enjoying your KGP life. Definitely do that. Participate in activities like sports and cultural activities, uh, and have a full experience. But be very conscious of how you are using your time. If you think you are wasting your time hanging out with friends, doing all nonsensical things which I cannot even speak in front of you, watching movies and whatnot. Uh, so all those things, if you think you are wasting time, then cut those activities. Confine yourself to your room or library, or within a group of friends who are serious about their study, uh, and be in that routine. Skip the classes if you can, and in between the classes, if you can go to library and study, then do that. Uh, but ultimately, this is the This is the choice that you have to make, how you use your time and how you manage your academics as well as the UPSC preparation, uh, along with living a good KGP life. So these three factors you have to balance, and it, I wish you all the best.
Yeah, that's great. Harsh, would you like to share your views regarding this and how you handled with your job?
Yeah, so since I did not prepare along with engineering studies, I'll answer this mostly from a perspective of balancing it with job prep while you're working. So a few things that you can keep in mind, and I think this will be relevant mostly for people who are in their final years and might start working next year, and then want to work as well as prep. So a few things that you can do is try to find a job where you can actually balance both of these. For most of the jobs, especially in consulting, it was very difficult before in Deloitte and now when I was working in McKinsey. At both these places, it was almost impossible to find time to study. Uh, I would be working around 12 hours a day sometimes, and so I'll mostly have weekends to study. So first thing is to find the right job, and the second is uh, to take to make use of the leave policy. Most of these firms have like 2 to 3 months of leave policy, so try to break them up if you can negotiate uh, with your employer. So I took 1 month break before prelims, 1 month break before mains, and 1 month, almost 2 weeks before interviews, uh, during which I was exclusively and only preparing for the exam. So use that. Sometimes many jobs also offer you sabbatical. Like all these corporates offer you sabbatical. So take a sabbatical, take a break for around 7, 8, or 10 months. Build up your base, and when you're studying, when you're joining back to working, you'll only be adding on top of the knowledge base that you have built in those 10 months. These are some of the tips. Although I think this will not be relevant to most of the people who are on this call, but for people who are working, I've created a separate blog because I was asked this a lot of times. So I've created a blog post on this where I've discussed this in more detail.
That was a great answer. We can save a few questions as you have already answered it. So moving to the next question.
As we know that things that go with us into our exam hall are either the ones which we have studied just a while ago or have revised them at least twice or thrice. So students usually have this question that how should we revise books that we have gone through once, like Spectrum or Lakshmikant. So our audience would be grateful if you could share your strategies for revision. So Sandeep, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So one thing about revision I would say is that revision becomes easier once you complete the syllabus of your optional and the standard books of GS part. You know, so first try to cover that. Complete the syllabus, read all the books for your optional as well as GS. Then revision is the key, as I have also said earlier. What I used to do is that whatever books I am reading, I used to make a notes of that. So if I am reading Lakshmikant, then I would make my own notes. Although in Lakshmikant, almost every line is important, so you have to be careful in how to make short notes. But still, from looking at previous year questions, I would find areas which are very important and from which frequently questions are asked, or the areas uh, which I forget quite often. Then I would mention them all in my notes, and I would revise through my own notes and only refer to main books when I need uh, the help of the main book. So that helped me revise a lot of books, because ultimately if you combine the NCRTs, then the standard books, then your optional subjects, then you have so many books, and reading all those books again and again is impossible, almost impossible. So you have to make your own notes, make your notes quite brief, to the point, and focus at the areas which are quite relevant from UPSC point of view or from your own requirements, the areas which you need to focus again and again. So make your own notes and revise through that. So regarding mathematics, I would say that I had made my notes, and I solved all the questions that I had mentioned in my notes almost 7 or 8 times. So I had almost memorized those questions, and many questions were asked in the actual examination in this year. A 20 marker was asked, and then some 15 markers and 10 markers were also asked. So that kind of revision through notes was helpful for me. Similarly, can be done in Spectrum and Lakshmikant. You have to pick and choose areas and make your own notes. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandeep. Harsh, would you like to go forward with your views on this?
Yeah, I would add a qualifier to what you mentioned while asking this question, that either in your examination hall, you either carry things which you have read very recently or read multiple times. You can't actually carry the things that you have read recently. And I think there was some discussion over muscle memory before. So you can only take the things that are in your muscle memory in the examination hall, because when you're writing the answer, you are in an automatic mode. You're not thinking when you're writing the answers. Only if you have built a habit of answering, uh, right, ingrained in your in those few moments, only the things that have been ingrained will actually come up in the answer script.
Yeah.
So you have to revise multiple times. You cannot just imagine that I'll read some of these things right before the exam. Now, everything I did is what I think exactly what Sandeep did. And if you'll ask most of the toppers, this is what they'll say about how to read books. This is exactly what I did as well. I read a few books, and then I would make notes, make my own notes, and by combining most of the things that these books would have. Now, initially, what my strategy was, and what I later improved, was earlier I was reading multiple books and then combining the information from these books according to books, the way books was divided. So if there are 10 chapters in Lakshmikant, I would make, say in Spectrum, if there are 10 questions, 10 chapters, I would create chapter notes for 10 chapters and then top them up with uh, the information from Bipin Chandra. But later on, I changed this strategy. And I think the second strategy proved to be more fruitful. I divided my notes on the basis of how the syllabus was, and then whatever information I'm coming across, either from Spectrum or from Bipin Chandra, I would add them to the relevant sections rather than adding them chapter wise of the book. And then while you're internalizing, you'll have to revise your own notes. I also depended and revised my notes rather than reading the book, because reading a book takes a lot of time if you're reading them end to end. Some of the people, what they have done is, and this is what I did for Lakshmikant, because Lakshmikant has everything that's written in Lakshmikant is almost important from exam point of view. For Spectrum, it's not, but for Lakshmikant, it is. So what I did in that book was I would highlight and then read only the highlights. And this I did only even for the economic survey when I was reading it. So these are the two things I think should be your strategy for revisions.
Thank you, Harsh.
Yeah, before moving on to the next session, I want to ask the panelists that do they have some time to answer the extra questions that we have in the chat box?
I have time.
Sure.
Sure, so we'll go forward. So coming to the next session of our seminar, where we'll be taking the questions from the audience. So the first question is, how wise a decision would be to pursue MBA from IIMs before getting into UPSC preparation? Will that help, or it will be a just delay the things? How good is the decision as a backup plan? So anybody would like to start?
Uh, Excuse me, I did not hear the question properly.
Sure, I'll repeat. How wise a decision will be to pursue MBA from IIMs before getting into UPSC exam preparation? Will that help, or it will just delay the things? How good is this decision as a backup plan?
First, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. So I think we have discussed adequately about this. There's no point in going to do a IIM MBA if you already want what your ultimate goal is civil services. If you're speaking only about a career backup plan, then an MBA is not sufficient, because that would say if you do an MBA, if you pass out in 2021 and then you are doing an MBA from then you prepare for MBA, or say you directly join in MBA course from 2021 to 2023, and then you're preparing for 3 years, and then you're using your MBA degree to find you a job in 2026. So I don't think that will be a best way to go about it. When I said MBA as a backup plan, it would be more relevant if, say, you clear out in 2021, you prepare for 3 years, then you decide that this is not your cup of tea, and then you go for an MBA, say between 2024 to 2026, and then look for a job in 26 onwards. So it will delay the process, and if you immediately go for an IIM, if your ultimate goal is civil services. Sandeep, anything else?
Yeah, I agree with hers. I think simply as a backup plan, having MBA is not useful. So either you go to job, you have a job and then prepare for civil services as hers did, or you take the risk and prepare full time. So, and in case you fail to clear the exam, then you might go for other options. So that would be a better option. Yeah.
The next question is that if we want a lifestyle in which we can live in big cities, then will choosing IAS or IPS will be a good option, despite them being the top preferences.
Sandeep, would you like to take this?
Yeah. So in IAS and IPS, there are field postings, mostly in districts. For first uh, 12, 13 years, you will not live in big cities. For short terms, you can live in cities, or sometimes in central deputation, you can live in Delhi. But for most of the time, you will be having a field post. So that will mostly be in some districts or small towns. So big city life would not be available in the initial period. After that, IAS people go to secretariat, so they live in capitals. So state capital you will mostly be living in, or in Delhi you will be living in. So then you can have big city life. For IPS, still they are posted in zones, various zones as DIG and IG. So till they reach the ADGP and DGP post, they don't live in big cities. Uh, for IAS, IPS, this is the case. And for IRS, mostly they live in big cities. So Hars can elaborate on that. I think he may have better idea.
Yeah, so Sandeep is right on point on this. You cannot really, and to the asker of this question, I would say if living in a big city is your preference, then maybe civil service is not the best choice. Because the idea of civil service is to reach to those nooks of the country where most of these services are still not in a good condition. Now, IRS, and I'll probably get IRS. So in IRS, there are two segments. One is C&C, which is Customs and Central Excise, and another one is income tax. And in IRS, the posting is for C&CE, the posting is mostly at seaports and airports, where there are issues of customs or smuggling. Like there was this crackdown of opium at Mundra port. For income tax, you will mostly be there in the regional income tax offices, which will mostly be headquarters in big cities. For other, so in civil services, in exam of UPSC, there are actually 24 services, and IAS and IPS are the only ones which have a cadre division where you'll mostly get a posting in those rural areas. For other services, allied services and like defense accounts and railway traffic, you'll mostly be working at in the regional zonal offices or headquarters, which will mostly be in big cities. That's it.
So moving to the next question. What are the chances that companies like PSU, IOCL, ONGCs accept the rejoining after taking the break from preparation of UPSC?
I do not have any particular information about job leaves that are specific for UPSC. I mean, the study leaves that are allowed, they do not include civil services preparation. They mostly include if you're going for higher studies. So study leaves will not take into account that. Now, for PSU exams, it's mostly through GATE. My knowledge on this is very limited. So I'll only, I can only speak tentatively. You'll have to confirm this by Googling. So these, the entry in most of these PSUs is through GATE, and you can write GATE at any point of time. It does not really make a difference whether you have taken a study leave for 3 to 4 years. However, if you're trying to get a job in private sector, there it might become an issue where the interviewer will ask you about a career gap in your resume. And usually saying that you were preparing for civil services, that might not have as bad an impression as you might think. This was my impression, that if I tell them I am preparing for civil services, it will have a very bad impact. If you're preparing for civil services, it might have a bad impact. But if you had prepared in past, then they don't really feel bad about this. In fact, at Deloitte, one of my colleagues, she was preparing for 3 to 4 years after college. Then she did an MBA and joined Deloitte. So she was still able to land a good job even when she was not from a top-notch college. For PSUs, I don't think that really matters.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. Is it necessary to start our basics from NCERT books, like 6 to 12 class, if we don't have any basic knowledge about humanities background?
So here I would say that NCERTs are really important to build the foundation. I did that in 2017. I mostly read NCERT books, and that helped me a lot in my GS preparation, because for engineering and science and engineering background students, uh, they are not that fluent in these humanities subjects. But in GS, the requirements are really very high. You have to be very fluent. You have to write standard answers. So for that, NCERT does help. But the thing is, there are so many NCERTs, so you can be selective. You can use your time wisely. If you don't have enough time, say you have only 1 year to prepare, then you can pick and choose NCERTs, especially from 11th and 12th class, and read them rather than reading all 6 to 12 NCERT. But if you have enough time, say one has started preparation early on in their college years, then they can read all the NCERT books from 6 to 12.
I'll add that I don't feel from 6th to 12th is you'll need entire thing. If you had been a good student at in your school, probably class 11th and 12th would suffice. I did not refer to any book that was below class 10th, but I specifically referred to history books of class 8, 9, 10th from prelims perspective, because there are some hidden notes there. But otherwise, you can skip for most of the other NCERT books. For 11th and 12th, I'll say prelims are NCERTs are very important when you're studying geography. Those are the only, NCERTs are the only thing that I referred for geography. For history, I refer to these 8, 9, 10th books. And then or probably 6th, 7th, 8th, I'll have to look that up. Those are our past 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
These are for 3 different years. These are the history books I referred from NCERT. Then for polity, you'll also need to refer to some of these, like our Constitution at Work. My option was sociology, and in sociology also I referred to some of the NCERT books like Understanding Indian Society and Introduction to Sociology. Uh, in science books, I skipped because I felt my base in science was quite adequate to help me pass through. So it would greatly depend upon how much you think you already know, and how much you want to cover. But NCERTs are definitely very important in building a strong base.
Great. So the next question is, are the lower preferences in CSE, like civil accounts, defense accounts, railway accounts, better than the top preferences of ESE, railways, military, and engineering? What's your take on that?
Personally, I feel that they are cliche is cliche for a reason. And if people are opting for IAS and IPS, there is a reason, because for people who have come with the motive of serving the society and people who want to bring a change, uh, they would usually, these are the services that offer the best in audits and accounts, or say defense accounts. What you're doing is actually you're just maintaining accounts for uh, you can do the same thing if you're a chartered accountant. So there is really no need to write the civil services to do defense accounts. What would possibly motivate somebody to uh, maintain the ledgers and balance sheets for defense or civil service for these services? So I think the top services are top for a reason. Sandeep, anything want to add?
Yeah. So, uh, if, for a reason, IS and IPS or IFS and IRS, these big four big four services are considered best services because of the opportunities they provide, especially in IS. If you take IS, then there are certain benefits, like you get promoted early on, and most of the secretary posts are given to IS officers. So that is there. If you look at the bureaucracy, then there is dominance of IA, and also the diversity in IA is immense. Also in IPS, you can see that the opportunities to interact with public and make an impact on public is there. And so public recognition of your work will be there. That cannot be said about, say, Indian Defense Account Service or some other services, allied services. So these are the perks, and then there are privileges as well. In IAS, IPS, you have some privileges which are not available to other services. For instance, DM and SP, they have some special perks and privileges. Uh, but ultimately, that should not be in the back of your mind. You should do what you are passionate about. If you are passionate about revenue service or IFS or IAS or any other post, then you should go into that direction, find passion within you, and work on that rather than thinking about relative comparison between these services.
That was nicely said. Now, coming towards the end of our discussion, what are your suggestions or any piece of advice which you would like to give to our future bureaucrats?
Future bureaucrats. So, so we are not in the position to give advice to future bureaucrats. That can be said by retired officers. So we are not yet bureaucrats, but you can say future aspirants. Did you mean that?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's
Good.
what they meant.
Oh, okay, okay. So yeah, future aspirants. So for them, I would say that UPSC journey is going to be a difficult journey for most of us, for hers and me, and for all the toppers that you see. This is a very difficult journey that you are going to undertake. So be mentally prepared, and don't take it casually. UPSC examinations, when we enter this phase of preparation, we are not aware of all the difficulties that lie ahead. And but we make a start, and then we go on, we struggle, and then we learn from mistakes. So from a position of having experience of all these, I would say that from the start itself, be mentally prepared to handle all the challenges. If you are climbing Mount Everest, then list down all the difficulties that you will face. If you are a good mountaineer, you will do that. Similarly, in UPSC preparation also, you should be aware of all the difficulties that lie ahead. You can listen to other toppers sharing their experiences. You can note them down and see how you will handle them, because this is going to be a difficult journey. Even in first attempt, you will have to dedicate 2 years of your life, and only 10% aspirants, less than 10% people make it in their first attempt. Most people take 3 attempts to clear this examination. That is the statistics right in front of you. So be prepared for that. And the thing is that honesty in your hard work will always help you. That will bring all the confidence that you need in this examination. This examination is not about knowledge or practice alone. This is also about confidence that you bring in during those 2 hours or 3 hours, or during that half hour in interview. So that, how will that confidence come in? Self confidence, self belief will come in. The honesty in your hard work will do that. So work hard, don't be casual, take things seriously, especially from the exam points of view, and be in a very disciplined routine. That discipline you might not take very seriously during your KGP life, none of us did, but that is very much required during your UPSC journey. and have clear sense of motivation why you are doing this, whether it is all worth it. You are giving so many hours of your life to this journey, you are making so many sacrifices, you are living a life which is not that desirable from an outsider points of view. You are away from your family, you are away from your friends, you are almost alone. But is that all worth it? There should be clarity regarding that. For me, it was clear. Yes, all of this is worth it, because what I will be getting at the end of the day, a very good opportunity to serve my nation, and that motivated me during my journey. So that sense of clarity and motivation should be there. And I wish all the future aspirants tough luck and all my best wishes. Thank you.
Harsh, what about you?
I think Sandeep very, very rightly pointed out, and this has been like the same, equally true for me, that this has been a very difficult, a very tumultuous journey. You start on with very high hopes, you're gonna clear it in the very first attempt, and then when you fail it a few times, then you realize maybe you're not that special. Uh, Clearing, everybody here will be an IITian, and many people outside who are preparing, they'll not have that tag. But tags really don't matter, and it does not matter really anywhere, whether you're working here, whether you're preparing, or whether you're working in a corporate sector. Life is going to be equally rough to everybody. Now, what you can do, the best you can do, is to enjoy the entire process. If you are at KGP, if you are studying at the premier institute of our country, then you should try to enjoy being there, learn new things, learn new skills, have that experience as varied as possible. When you're outside, try to have that experience again there. Try to live a, more fuller life. And then when you're preparing for services, try to enjoy that preparation, uh, you know, throughout those difficulties as well. When you are facing that, uh, when you're getting very low marks, when you're not able to understand something, when you feel that this is an insurmountable challenge, and that's what I felt in the very beginning. I did not know the difference between uh, what does a prime minister do and what does a president do. Why are there two posts? And why the Indian prime minister is so much in highlight and our president is not so much in highlight, whereas in US it's exactly, and there is no prime minister in US, and then there is only a president. So these, you don't even know these things, but when you learn these, when you know the society around you, try to enjoy that and try to absorb having insights about things that are happening around you. That will make the process much easier. I could read sociology because I enjoyed reading it, so always have that factor in my mind. And then there is another thing, and this might become more true if you are a working aspirant. So I'll like I started reading poetry, so I'll quote a few lines, uh, because there will always be a lot of naysayers. So कुछ लोग तुम्हें समझाएंगे, वो तुमको खौफ दिलाएंगे कि जो है वो भी खो सकता है, इस राह में रहज़न है इतने, कुछ और यहाँ हो सकता है, पर कुछ और तो अक्सर होता है, तुम जिस लम्हे में जिंदा हो, ये लम्हा तुमसे जिंदा है, ये वक्त नहीं फिर आएगा, तुम अपनी करनी कर गुजरो, जो होगा देखा जाएगा. So, prepare with this mindset that whatever is going to happen, it's going to happen for the best. Even if you don't make it through, don't feel bad about, leaving this preparation and going for a different career. People who have not, Geeta Gopinath and her husband were preparing for civil services. Uh, he's her husband now. They were colleagues at that time. Her husband was AIR 1 in 1996-97, and Geeta Gopinath failed to do that. Now she was and she'll be leaving that job soon, but she was the chief economist at IMF. Her husband worked for 5 years at IS and then left the job and then became a professor at Harvard. And now, so she was a chief economist at IMF, whereas her husband is a only a professor. So life really turns out very different from how you would imagine it to turn out. Try to enjoy whatever is happening right now.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Thank you for all your advices. So, coming to the conclusion of the session, but I'd like to thank all our panelists, Mr. Harsh and Mr. Sandeep, for taking out their valuable time and giving us valuable insights regarding UPSC. This session was very inspiring and motivating for all the UPSC aspirants in the KGP. We wish you best of luck for your future. We will also like to thank our audience being so pleasant and active during the session. That's it from our side. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for Communique for organizing this. And thank you, Sandeep. I think your insights were very valuable. Some of these things, I learned myself. So thank you everyone.
Thank you, Harsh, and thank you, Communique, for giving me this opportunity to interact with fellow aspirants. And I hope this continues. This is not a one-off session. I hope that aspirants from KGP get constant guide from those who are qualified civil services from KGP.